Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone, and thanks for coming to what normally would be the March Windy City meetup, but it is April 1st, so we missed that deadline by a day, but we're going to consider this to be the March meetup. So if you are new to Windy City DPM, first of all, thank you for coming. Welcome. But we are a group, we've been a meetup that has been around for a few years, and I do have a lovely slide right here. We're a Chicago area get together for digital project managers, although the get together part obviously is not technically, we're together via the magic of Zoom. But Windy City DPM, we just started this year doing these virtual meetups. So this is the third one trying this new format. It's been exciting. It's been an experiment, and I've been having fun with them. So the goal is to keep these going on a monthly basis with new ideas, new concepts, new speakers. Potentially later in the year, we're going to be looking to do workshops as well beyond just panel conversations. So I hope that if you like this, you stay in touch and you come to more of them. A little bit about me before we introduce our speakers. So I'm Aaron Sensor. I'm a project manager at 8-Bit Studios. And 8-Bit Studios is a people-friendly and award-winning UX design, tech, and QA studio in Chicago. Making apps, making websites. It's a cool place, very fun people. So if you're looking for that type of work, give us a call. Anyways, digital PM career path. So why are we here? What are we doing tonight? So tonight we have 4 panelists from the spectrum of project and product management. They're going to share their career stories, walk us through their backgrounds, how they got to where they are now. Maybe we'll talk about any personal struggles or hurdles that they've come up with along the way. And hopefully give some advice. So whether or not you're here because you are brand new to project management and you're just looking to get your foot in the door, or you've been doing this stuff for a while and you're kind of thinking about, all right, what's next? How do I move on from here? Hopefully we've got some content for you tonight. So let me go ahead and introduce our 4 speakers. We've got Denise Heffron is the Experience Center Manager at PwC. She's a program management and digital strategy leader focused in online marketing, website design, web and software development with a proven track record of creating, motivating, and leading multidisciplinary teams to deliver significant results in culture, business, and in client delivery. She's a native of Buffalo, New York, an avid Buffalo Bills fan, and enjoys time on the Peloton or running outdoors whenever possible. We've got Susan Pfeiffer, Associate Partner and Discipline Lead of Project Management at VSA Partners. As the head of project management, Susan is passionate about empowering her teams, leading with empathy, and finding new and innovative solutions to problems. She oversees a team of 15+ project managers who incorporate a variety of project management methodologies into their work. Susan's strategic leadership has been pivotal to the success of client relationships, including Fortune 100 companies in the tech, commodities, CPG, and communication fields. We've also got Erica Bush, Director of Program Management of the PMO at Sphera. She's a strategic leader with a track record for understanding, assessing, and improving technology organizations. She's worked at some of the world's most recognized brands. You may have heard of them, like Bank of America, Redbox, and United Airlines. She's now the director at Sphera Solutions, a startup located in downtown Chicago. She's responsible for developing and improving the company's software delivery processes. As the PMO director, she designs, implements, and provides training for the 350+ person engineering and product management colleagues. And last but not least, we've got Katie Waring, Senior Product Owner at Echo Global Logistics. Operating under the motto, knowledge is power in various industries, Katie has proven success in product development, focusing on creating and enhancing products that best meet the user's needs. She's also passionate about building welcoming company cultures, doing so by promoting candid conversations about mental health, allyship, and mentoring. Katie writes and practices her incredibly rusty cello skills in her spare time, much to her neighbors, and I can't pronounce that word. Is it chagrin, right? Am I correct there? Cool, awesome.
It is chagrin.
Awesome. I've, being someone who read a lot as a kid, I have the unfortunate habit of sometimes not being very good at pronouncing words because I'm so used to just reading them. Anyways, welcome to our speakers and welcome to all of our meeting participants. So how we're going to do this is we have some great questions for them and we have some questions from the audience as well. But we're going to start first with an icebreaker. And then we're going to start where each of our speakers is going to take about 5 minutes and really walk everyone through their career path. We'll just give them a little bit of time to speak, talk about what inspires them, how they got to where they are, and then we'll move into some questions. But before we get to that, let's start with an icebreaker. So, icebreaker, if you were working in a completely different field from where you are now, what would you be doing? And we will kick that off with Katie.
Ooh, I get to go first. Okay. So if I were working in something that was completely different than what I'm doing right now, I would actually pursue what my degree is in, which is history. And would probably be working in museums somewhere, doing something.
Specifically a history museum or any museum?
Actually, I originally wanted to go on and do forensic anthropology. So I did like the Field Museum, my favorite museum, like ever. So bones, probably. Somewhere.
As someone who used to work at Shed Aquarium, I'll pretend to not be hurt that you said
Sorry.
that.
Sorry.
Cool. How about Erica? If you were working in a completely different field, what would you be doing?
So I actually love what I do right now. So I would, if I had to work, I would be doing what I'm doing. But if I had the option of not working, but just being able to pursue something that I really love, it would be studying and researching theology. It's a really interesting subject. I love studying all types of different religions. And if I could get paid to do that, then I would travel and study the historical landmarks and, similar to what Katie said with the archaeological sort of in research aspect, that's what I would do. But if I have to work, then I'd probably do what I'm doing right now.
That's good. That's a good place to be in. If you have to work, might as well be glad that you're doing what you're doing. Susan, what about you?
Yeah, so same caveat. I love my job. I love what I do. But if I could do anything or if money was no object, first, I would probably spend a full year just traveling all around the globe to many different places and just be nomadic for a while. And then I think as a career, I would love to be a master gardener. I'd love to pursue that from an educational perspective, work at a Chicago Botanical Gardens. Even if it was literally just pulling weeds in a specific area, that's the perfect retirement job for me. So, in 20 years, that's what I'll probably be doing.
There we go. So follow-up question, if you could grow anything, what plant would you grow?
Oh, I grow so many plants already. I have a whole closet that is just dedicated to seed starting and growing and seedlings. I really like growing a bunch of different varieties of tomatoes. I think I have 8 different types of tomatoes going right now. So I probably would do a full garden only of tomatoes if I could eat them all because I love them and I think they're so interesting.
Great. You can always make tomato sauce, tomato soup. We know from firsthand experience ourselves how many tomatoes a single plant.
I can.
Cool. And then finally, Denise, what about you?
So kind of piggybacking off of what Susan just said, I love the idea of being nomadic and being able to travel for a year. But past that, I would also go back and do more in line with what my degree is in, and that would be graphic design.
Great. Right. Well, I I think the ice has been broken. So let's move into the career journey part of it. So what we'll do, all of our speakers will have 5 minutes and we'll just, we'll give them a little bit of time to talk. So I will go ahead. We have a nice little career map for each of them. So Denise, you ended the icebreaker. If you would like to start, we're not going to time you, but if you just want to talk about, you know, how you got to where you are.
Sure. So as I just mentioned, I have a degree in graphic design. Been in the workforce for a number of years now, but when I started, that's where my focus was. I was able to evolve into web design and did that for a number of years. I worked largely in Buffalo, New York, in that area, part of a large global bank called HSBC. And at the time, we merged with a larger team in Chicago that was part of household finance. And they had a larger UX and design group here in the loop. So I was able to relocate to Chicago, very thankful for that, with them as a designer. But back then, designers sort of did everything. We had front-end development skills, web visual design, UX, strategy and research. So we were sort of jack of all trades. Having the legacy experience with HSBC, I had a lot of different relationships and just sort of naturally evolved into project management because I helped to coordinate a lot of things for the broader team. And it just seemed like a natural fit, and it was a gap we didn't have within our group. And I did enjoy doing that. And an opportunity came up at Sears. So I was able to transition there, worked there for just about 5 years, helped to grow and expand their user experience practice. We were comprised of project and program managers, UX designers, research, visual design, copy, front-end development. It was a great experience. I was really able to build up more defined project management skills, but really sort of learned on the job and have enjoyed doing that. I then transitioned to a digital agency here in Chicago, Critical Mass, and was brought on as a program director for a large client at the time. Was there for almost 5 years as well. Unfortunately, we lost a big client, so I was part of some layoffs, which wasn't great, but it provided me the opportunity to take a little break. I focused on getting some certifications and then was able to transition into a position that was at the time project management focused, but our discipline has evolved since I've been there. I joined actually in 2019 and we're now part of the experience strategy group. So I feel fortunate that I'm able to continue to grow and learn new skills, take on new challenges, as well as being able to leverage the experience that I've gathered along my career path.
Great, thank you. So what would you, if you could kind of think, what would you say was maybe the hardest transition that you had to make from one position to another?
Well, probably because it's so fresh, I would say right now, just continuing to upskill myself on getting more into strategy. So delivering on project management, but also working with team members to do things like ethnographic research, usability testing. Well, some of these things I had done earlier in my career, it's been a minute. So just getting back into that and finding a balance, I think has been challenging, but in a good way, because I enjoy being able to learn and grow.
Great, thank you. Let's move on to, there we go. Let's move on to Susan. If you want to walk us through your career path.
All right. I think, I don't know if the slide slide didn't advance on my end, but
Oh,
maybe
let me
it's
see if
coming.
how's that?
Everybody can hear me, right? Do you guys see my slide or you still see Denise's? All right. Okay, cool. Well, I'll just wing it and Aaron's internet will catch up with us at some point. So I like to start my career kind of all the way back at the beginning of what my first management job was, because I think that kind of was really the telltale sign for me. So I worked most of my teenage. Oh, we lost Aaron. All right, cool. This is gonna be great, you guys. We're gonna figure it out.
I'm back.
Anyways, I think it's important because like I played the role of expediter, which if you've ever worked in a restaurant, you really know what that is. And that primarily is the central hub of the restaurant. So you're charged with all the different activities that are happening and making sure everything is operating smoothly, which is very similar to project management. So I think that's always like a fun first fact about management for me. I then kind of did a bit of a wander experience with the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. And then I went on to work at a small agency for about 5 years doing everything. So when you work in a small agency, especially back in the early 2000s, there wasn't really such a thing as project management per se. There was like a traffic management role, but there wasn't really a project management role. So I did everything from account to production work to graphic design to project management to media trafficker to pretty much everything. So when the 2008 bubble hit and I got laid off, I was able to kind of take some time to think about like what I really wanted to do with my career. So it ended up being kind of like this nice blessing in disguise. Because I had realized when I was working at this company that I actually didn't want to be a graphic designer. Really, I think it's because I just didn't have the right mentality for it. I think I was just young and I just thought it would be different than in the project management side. So I decided to kind of focus in that area and I went to work at a company called the Food Group, which is it's now a very small company. It's a WPP company. And I started there as a traffic manager, which some of you may remember that term. It's a pretty antiquated term these days, but it kind of predates the term project management. And I kind of spent a good time there just teaching myself how to be a project manager. So I took a couple of courses to learn how to do it. I, got a certificate from the PMI Institute, so on and so forth. Did that for about 6 years, built up that team, and then moved into the VSA partners, which is where I work now. I started as a senior project manager. I've been there for 7 years now, and I now run the department. So it's kind of the brief history of me.
There we go. Sorry. Let me just make sure because I cut out for a bit. Can all of you see the correct slide? And is everyone okay?
They can.
Are we all good?
Yeah, you dropped and then you came back and we worked it all out.
Awesome. Well, unfortunately, I missed the start of that, but thank you for going through all of that. I don't have a follow-up question because I was busy worrying about getting back into the meetup, but we will get into other questions after.
That's fine. I think if you were to ask me the same question that you asked Denise, I would say the hardest transition probably was going from the Food Group to VSA, because up until the Food Group, I really taught myself how to be a project manager. I didn't really have a lot of mentors or advocates, or I didn't really know what I was doing. So when I went to VSA, where there was already a well-established project management group, like there was a great learning curve there, which was awesome, which was exactly what I was looking for.
Great. Cool. All righty. Erica, would you like to go next?
Absolutely, thank you. So I'll start with, I graduated from Illinois Institute of Technology. I think they're calling themselves Illinois Tech now. My degree is actually very related to what I do today. It was information technology and management. It was a degree for people who were interested in technology, but wanted to go more on the management track. So right out of college, I was recruited by Bank of America and into a very technical role. So I was a systems engineer for Bank of America's investment bank. That's how I met Don Bora, also on the call. I did that for about a year, almost 2 years. It doesn't quite reflect it on the dots, but almost 2 years. And it was a very technical role. It was also a support role, which meant I worked all weekends, all holidays. And because it was a bank, all changes happened on the weekend. So you pretty much didn't have a life. So it was a no-brainer for me to look for something different in the technology space outside of support, because I had a young family at the time. So I transitioned from the systems engineer role into release management. And again, it was a really sort of logical step in my career path, because I went from being a support person to now supporting the support team doing that release management. I got my project management certification and became an official project manager at Bank of America. I was at Bank of America for almost 8 years and moved to Redbox as their senior project manager. So at Redbox, my responsibility and roles expanded. I was responsible for all of their major projects, from changes on the kiosk, the website, the mobile device, and even some infrastructure projects. So, from the time I graduated from IIT to Redbox, I just continued to develop those technical skills and the management skills that I set out to study. So, I was at Redbox for about a year and a half. They actually went from being a public company to a private company. And one thing about working at Bank of America is you get really good at reading the writing on the wall. And Bank of America was a company that they had annual layoffs. And actually, I think it was, they did layoffs twice a year. So you just got used to that sort of that stress. And so when I saw that Redbox was going private, I thought it was a good time to look for a new opportunity. So found something at Huron Consulting Group, and things just really worked out. It was my first really leadership role where I was responsible as an analyst working for me. And so I was able to take all those years of the technical experience, the project management experience, and become a coach to my PMs and analysts. I was at Huron Consulting, you can see, for a few years. And then I moved to United Airlines. And if I had to, and this may sound a little unfair because I'm not at United anymore, but so far I would say United Airlines is one of my most favorite jobs. And that was really because of the flight benefits. In the 3 years that I was at United Airlines, I'm not sure if that, I may have told you 2019, but it may have been 2018. But in the 3 years that I was at United Airlines, my family has traveled all over the world. So just for the flight benefits alone, it was an absolutely wonderful experience. And unfortunately, due to the pandemic last year, again, just being able to see the writing on the wall, I thought it was time to exit. And also during that time, so also during the pandemic, I finished my MBA at DePaul and found the opportunity at Sphera, where I'm now running their project management office. And it's a wonderful experience. It's really cool because I sit in between the product team and the engineering team. And it's a young company, so about 5 years old, and we're at the point where we're transitioning from becoming, from calling ourselves a startup to trying to become more mature. And so being able to take my project management experience from United Airlines, Huron, Redbox, and Bank of America, and help to mature those processes and build up the PMO. It's been a wonderful, really exciting challenge. I've been there 6 months, or a little over 6 months, and we're already seeing great improvements in how we're planning and executing.
That's great. So, as you mentioned, you've been at these fairly large, well-known companies, and now you're at a startup. What do you think is kind of the biggest change that you've seen, or how big of a change has it been for you to move from that type of environment to this other one?
Oh, that's really easy. It's not as political. I still have to sort of pinch myself. It's it's just so much easier. It's so much easier to get things done. It's so much easier to talk to folks. 90,000 person company. I don't know. I couldn't even just, if I wanted to change the brand of pens we wanted to use, it just took so many requests, so many meetings. It was just really, it was a challenge to get things done quickly. And what I love about Sphera is if you've got an idea, you can try it. And there's not a lot of bureaucracy or red tape in the way. And so being able to really apply that test and learn sort of mindset and to be able to do that is just really refreshing.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Absolutely. The other question that I had for you was, getting that PMP. Obviously, there are lots of people moving into project management who don't get the PMP, but really, you were not explicitly doing project management. So what really was it that spurred the interest in getting your certification and moving into project management?
I'm going to make all the PMs on here cringe. To be honest, so again, I was a support, I was in support. And when I say I worked every weekend, I worked nearly every weekend. And at Bank of America at the time, so this is really before DevOps was taking off and you had continuous integration and deployment. And at the time, any kind of change that you wanted to make, it was always done Fridays, I think, Friday after 9 p.m. And you had to have the environments up and they had to be smoke tested and green by Sunday, 5 p.m. And I remember, I missed so many ballet practices and so many, just so many different activities with my family because I was always working on the weekends. I even missed marathons and races that I'd signed up for because, an environment wouldn't come up and we'd be all hands on deck. And it just looked like the project managers had a sweeter life. But, little did I know at the time, little did I know that, PM project managers also worked weekends. But I do have to say that it was certainly a big change and not as taxing. But those 2 years as a systems engineer, you really earned your stripes. And so for me, I was looking for an opportunity where I could stay in technology. Mm-hmm. But just have more flexibility.
Great. Well, thank you. And then let's have our final speaker, Katie, if you want to.
I think Aaron may be frozen.
I was going to say, oh man. Okay. So my path is shorter. I certainly have less expertise than my fellow panelists, especially because I moved out of project management into product. My path starts when I graduated in 2012 from Shawnee State University, which is a very tiny school in Portsmouth, Ohio. Nobody knows where that is. That's okay. And graduated in 2012, ended up moving to the San Francisco Bay Area the same year. And I ended up getting a job in retail because I needed work and wasn't finding something fast enough that, would take somebody with a history degree. So did that for a little bit and then ended up actually in publishing. I worked for a company called Cengage Learning, and I was taken on as a product assistant there. And what was really cool about that is that it gave me a really cool insight into an aspect of publishing that I had never considered, which was educational publishing. Like usually when we think of publishing, we think trade. And when we think of, reading books, we think Random House, we think Penguin. No, this is educational publishing is a completely different animal, and it was very cool. So I worked there for a few years, and I was kind of looking for something a little closer to the Midwest again. I'm from Ohio, so it was, felt very natural that I was kind of like missing home a little bit. And I ended up getting an opportunity that was a promotion for me, also into project management in a new city, Chicago. So lots of new things happening at once. 2016 was wild on many different fronts. And it was also very cool because it felt a little familiar still in the same company, still doing, publishing, but a completely different facet. And with that also came like its own set of challenges, because I was asked to take on a process that hadn't really been fully fleshed out. So like Susan a little bit, like Denise a little bit, like Erica a little bit, just kind of learning on the job, lots of learning on the job, and really trying to figure out, okay, what makes sense to do here. So there was a lot of that. Did that for a couple of years. And, it takes a little bit, but it took a couple of years for me to realize this probably isn't the right fit for me. And for those in here, like, it's okay to know if something is not the right fit for you. And so I was trying to find something that was still project management adjacent at least, but, felt, a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? I wanted to be a little more responsible, I think, for the creation of a product and like what all that entailed. And in this time, I had also taken a course on Scrum. I became a certified Scrum Master, which opened my eyes to like product ownership, which I was kind of like, oh, that sounds cool. I want to try that. And I found the job at Echo Global Logistics. And I started there in December of 2018. And I've been working there ever since. In October of 2019, I was recognized for a company-wide internal award, which is frankly kind of validating that this is the right path for me. And then March of 2021, I was promoted. So I feel good about that.
Yeah. What would you say is
and here I am. Go ahead.
Sorry, I think I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think my internet might be on a bit of a delay. I was going to ask, what would you say is the biggest difference in terms between project and product management?
Ooh, the biggest difference. From my perspective, product management, they're very similar. They are very similar because you are looking holistically at something, frankly, from like conception to release. You are looking holistically at it. I think that product is more focused on, at least in my experience, on kind of the mechanics within the thing itself that you're working on. So for me, I work on one of Echo's core applications. So to me, that means that I am more focused on how it's functioning, what it's doing, like, is this meeting the need, etc. Versus my time in project management, I wasn't necessarily focused on that piece. I was more focused on okay, are we meeting our deadlines? Are we getting this done? Are we moving forward? Like, what's holding us back? Do you have what you need? That kind of stuff. So they're very similar, but the focus is slightly different,
Sure, makes
if that
sense.
makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you for all those career path introductions. So we're going to move into Q&A. Stop sharing my screen. We're going to move into Q&A. You may have noticed my internet is having issues. So I'm going to pass off the moderation to Heather Brown.
He's
And
trying to hand it over to me.
Okay, great.
I'm gonna try to let him, but I think his internet is like, no, thank you.
I think my internet is dying.
I will take over. I'm Heather. I work with Erin as well as a partner, and I've gotten to grill 3 of you ladies before. Susan and Denise and Katie and Erica. It's really nice to meet you. You guys have all been on panels. Gosh, what was it? 2018? I'm gonna guess 2018. I'm going for it. 2018, 2017. So previous panels we did with Windy City DPM. So I'm going to take over the Q&A part, and then I'll pass it back to Erin at the end. But I've got a lovely list of questions that they've queued up. So I've heard a couple of you guys mention certifications that you've gotten as kind of part of your career path, and I want to dive into that because I always feel like that's a hot topic of like, should you get certified or should you not, and kind of what are your guys' feelings on that? So Susan, I'm going to kick it up with you first.
Sure. Yeah. So I think that like if you are somebody who's building software, if you're somebody who's building systems, if you have Erica's job, then I think you definitely need a PMP, and that it's very helpful. I think that if you are maybe building websites, but you're also building brands and you're building other sort of more marketing and some maybe product focused stuff, you maybe don't need the PMP, but I would say a Scrum certification is important. I actually put more emphasis on that certification than PMP at VSA, honestly, just because I don't think that everything that is in the PMP is useful project management information, but it's kind of built for, construction, softwares, airplanes, those sorts of things, and not necessarily built for like, brand expression and brand strategy, those sorts of things. Agile's a little bit more built for that. So I would say if your job's more focused in the latter, to focus your area in Scrum.
Are you guys Agile at VSA?
Not completely, but we do a lot of that. Like I'm doing one Agile project and then like 2 non-Agile projects. So it kind of just depends. And even when I wouldn't say we do traditional waterfall either. I would say we just kind of do what's right for each project, which sometimes means Agile and sometimes means everything is just kind of happening on top of each other. And sometimes it means it's
which
waterfall.
Probably is why Scrum makes a lot of sense for you to kind of push the team towards in terms of certification. Yeah, cool. Denise, what are your thoughts?
Yes, I would agree with everything Susan said, especially after learning on the job. I went back and forth with a lot of that. When I was laid off, I was proposed with an opportunity to leverage a government grant, and I actually got all my certifications for free. So that was definitely a bonus. While I am largely in the design and strategy realm, I definitely was looking towards Scrum. It kind of came as a package deal, so I was able to get my PMP, which was great. And I do see value in it, but I think it's helpful to know, like, it's not necessarily going to apply and be like a roadmap for you to follow on your projects. It's just good to have for the basics, I guess, and why you do certain things and some best practices. But I would definitely agree with Susan that the Agile certifications were much more valuable and helpful for what we do in the digital space.
Yeah, and I think what's cool too is that we found a lot of resources pop up, more recently too. I think partly because of the pandemic, but resources by way of like webinars and digital conferences that you can go to that are really awesome in terms of, either additions to certifications that we get or just different types of education that we get in the project management space. At least I found that. And I don't know if that's like something that any of you guys have attended either, but I think there are just much more resources these days than maybe in the past, which is cool. Katie, what are your thoughts
I
on
am a big
certifications?
fan of Agile. We use Agile. We may not use it perfectly. Nobody uses it perfectly. It like no such thing.
You use what works.
And and I like Agile a lot. I think that to like what Susan said and what Denise said, like it's really kind of dependent on your industry. Like PMPs are probably really great for other things, for other sects of the industry. Agile is pretty flexible. It's built that way. And so I think that that's probably the most helpful.
Erica, do you have any thoughts? I know you have your MBA, so
You know,
you got max skills, you know, you got max.
So I think I'm going to diverge a little bit from the other panelists and say that when I'm hiring a project manager, certification is a requirement. But an interesting fact is my most recent hire, I was actually looking for a change manager. And so I hired a change manager for my PMO because I knew coming into Sphera that we needed to mature their processes, and that meant a lot of change. And so while I wasn't looking for someone with a PMP, I was looking for someone with a change management certification. And the reason I did that is because I think that the certification does give you credibility. And you know, like the other panelists have mentioned, whether you're doing agile or waterfall, people like to work the way they want to work. And so one of the roles of a PMO and a project manager is to be a coach and to provide guidance. And so having that certification gives you that credibility to be able to implement change and to guide people and to build that trust. And so I do lean towards individuals that are certified and also have the experience. So I'm not, you know, I like a combination of both.
All right, let's pretend you are brand new in your career. You're starting over. What would you say is the hardest struggle for someone trying to get into the project management field? Whether they're transitioning from another job or just maybe fresh out of college. Who wants to take
Is that for me? Or?
I'm going to say Denise. Let's have you kick us up.
Sure. So I think just thinking back to my own experience is understanding that you're not necessarily an individual contributor. You're more helping to facilitate a team. And somebody recently gave me a pretty good analogy. You're the party planner. You're not the band that's scheduled to perform. So you just need to help orchestrate and make sure everyone's on point to deliver what they're responsible for. And that can be stressful, I think, because as project managers, we're typically pretty organized and deliver. So if you have maybe a team member that's needs a little bit more help or coaching, that can add stress. But I think for me, that's what I think of, like just getting into that mindset that you're no longer the one necessarily responsible for delivering each piece. It's more helping to coordinate and making sure your team has what they need to do that.
Cool. Anyone else have anything on that question? You're starting off fresh, trying to get in.
I guess if it's your very first job, I think the thing that I often tell people is that like to give yourself like a good 3+ months, that you really need to like settle in. You're not going to be amazing at it immediately. And like, I know a lot of people get kind of very like, oh my God, I'm not really good at this thing. And it's like, fine. Like, you're not going to be really good at everything like right away. You got to just have a little bit of patience and just remind yourself that just because you don't know how to do it right this instant doesn't mean like in 6 months, you won't know exactly what you're doing. And so, and then also just to try to trust like your communication style and how you communicate and how you might like put forth, it might be a little different than say another project manager or anybody else on your team or your boss or whoever. I think that was another lesson, like, you know, there are many different ways to be a project manager, not just one.
Mhm. And I've noticed, I think that's a good point, Susan. I've noticed throughout my career too, of like observing others and like emulating things from other project managers that I've like, oh, I really like how this person does that, or that's a really effective way to communicate. So really kind of taking that and using that in terms of my vehicle too. So I think that's an interesting point. Erica or Katie, do you guys have anything?
You know, I would say, I think for new PMs, an area where they may struggle is holding folks accountable. And I've also seen the opposite of that, where you have project managers who want to be everyone's friend, and so they get ran over. And so finding that balance between holding people accountable, but still being liked so that you can get things done, that can be a challenge because you know, I think Denise, you said earlier, you're the party planner and not the band. And so you're not doing the work. And so you have to be able to influence people. And so you have to be likable, but then you do have to circle back and say, hey, did you get that done when you said you were going to get that done? And you have to be comfortable sort of being a little confrontational.
Mm-hmm.
This is sort of like just general job stuff, not necessarily project management focused, but like I would say that it's so whenever you walk into any job, you don't know what you don't know. So don't be afraid to ask. Like I, for a long time, and this is not the correct way to phrase it, don't phrase it like I did, but I would always say, I have a stupid question because I wasn't afraid to ask the question. But a better way to, you know, even now, I ask engineers, I'm like, okay, I need you to explain that to me. Like I'm 5, like explain it to me again. You don't know what you don't know, so don't be afraid to ask. If there's something with a process that's not working or doesn't make sense to you, ask. Maybe it's just the way that they've always done it versus something that could be improved.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. All right, so you're no longer a new PM. We're talking growth in the project management field and what that looks like. So I want to kind of get your guys' insights, whether it's your career, whether you've seen what fellow colleagues or project managers have done in terms of starting as a project manager, but where you go from there. Katie, I actually want to start with you because I know you switched over to product management to get your insight.
I did switch over, and that's because I knew that my skill set isn't suited to project management. I am not. I think project to product is very cool if you get into project management and you're kind of like, if you're the person who wants to be everybody's friend and you don't think that you've got it in you to hold people accountable all the time, like saying, hey, where's my stuff? That's okay. It's okay to know yourself like that. And so product might be the right path for you. I would say if you're interested in product, not that this is a product meetup, this is a project management meetup. If you're interested in product, A, ping me. B, it's, really kind of dig into why you think you would be more interested in product than project management. Is it the idea of producing something really cool, like you want to be at the forefront of something? Are you tired of being the party planner and not the band? Are you like, what is it about the thing that you're looking at as you grow in your career that draws you to it? And does it make sense to you? Like, it's also like, you have to kind of think about, like, are you interested in the idea of it, or are you interested in what it actually takes? Like, to Erica's point, like, as a systems engineer, like, God bless the systems engineers, like, God bless the support crew, like, because I'm on release nights with with my team all the time as a product owner. And it kind of sucks, but I mean, I own the product that I'm putting out. Like, I knew this was the right path for me because this is the way for all of you Mandalorian fans. This is the way.
Awesome. Susan, I'm going to shift over to you because you are now head of the project management department at VSA. What career paths do you typically see project managers taking?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it goes from like managing just projects to managing groups of projects to managing teams of project managers. And I think that's more of like the trajectory that I see is kind of like we have a pretty robust like levels of project management at VSA, and it's built pretty intentionally in the sense that like you can start at kind of like a mid-level and rise up and like manage a group of people underneath you. And so it's kind of hierarchical, but at flat at the same time, if that makes sense. Cause like I'm still managing projects, even though I lead the team. And some people may think that that's weird. But for me, I think that like staying connected to the actual work that we're doing and managing projects keeps me a lot more grounded in what's happening at VSA. I've seen other people in this role I wouldn't say not do the best, but like it's different. Like if they're not connected to the ground floor, then they're kind of missing a lot of things. And so it feels very disconnected from a leadership perspective. Yeah, so I guess I would say that like you start managing projects, you grow into groups of projects, you grow into groups of project managers, and into kind of a bigger set of things. And that is not to say that like every single person has to be a people manager, because I also know that that's not always the path. Because it's not for everyone. You're kind of responsible for the growth and health of somebody's career as their manager and mentor. And if you're not really willing or able to do that, then you probably shouldn't, because you don't want to then hold somebody back. So then you just kind of look for other areas, like it's bigger projects for you then. Or maybe you just stay at where you are and you grow in different ways, and your salary increases because you're managing multi-million dollars versus just hundreds of thousands of dollars or something like that.
I think one cool thing about being a project manager is that you get insight into just about everything going on, so you're really able to say like, oh, hey, that account over there, that multi-million dollar account, that's really what I want to strive to do. Or that account director role, that's maybe something I want to strive to do. Or even moving into like an operational type role. I think you have such visibility into, not only the projects level, but the business level. And I think that's really kind of a cool thing too. Erica, do you have any insight?
I think in terms of, the question was what's next, right? Like if you've been managing projects for a few years, similar to what Susan has said, like what Katie shared, and even yourself, when you're in that project management role, depending on how engaged and interested you are, you do get sort of that big picture view that your developers or your QA folks aren't going to necessarily have. So you're able to see other opportunities within the organization. And a lot of the skills that you need to be an effective project manager are transferable to so many other roles. For instance, personally, I've been in a sort of project management sort of role for over a decade now, I guess, if we go back to that slide. And I could easily see me taking those skill sets and moving into operations, because a lot of what I'm doing today is process improvement. And so, I think it just really depends on what your interests are, what you're good at, and if you're willing to try new things. For me personally, I look for new challenges often. And so I could easily see myself moving out of the technology organization and trying to do what I'm doing today in a completely new part of a company, just to see how it goes.
I'm going to stay on you, Erica, and go to the next question. Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years?
Yes. That's a good question. Lately I've been thinking more about trying new things. I've been in technology most of all of my professional career, and done well there. But I would like to move into, maybe a marketing role or something in operations, and just really test to see if I could really take these skills like I've said so often, and actually apply them and be successful. So, and in another 5 or 10 years, I could see myself outside of technology, helping helping wherever I am to more efficient. Efficiency is a thing that I love. So, I could easily see that.
And I think it's such a key point that you made is that as a project manager, you have such transferable skills, and that is such a cool thing. And we should never lose that. And so I think you're right, as we grow and as you continue in your career, just finding like, what are those transferable skills, and how can I move up with that?
Yeah,
Denise, where do you see yourself 5 to 10 years?
That's a great question. And honestly, I'm on the upper end of my career. So honestly, retired.
There you go. You're going to get that nomadic lifestyle. Come on.
Exactly. But fortunately, I enjoy where I am right now at PwC. I'm part of a group that had been an agency that was acquired. So it still has that agency feel. I'm able to be challenged. So as long as I can stay there, I'd be happy to, and then evolve into relaxation.
And you'll buy a trailer and head on the road. There you go.
That's right.
Right. Susan, where do you see yourself 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, there's been some interesting new developments that we've been kind of working on and growing pretty rapidly. So, I could see just staying the course and seeing where this ride leads me, because it's so interesting being part of a company who does take chances and tend to kind of reinvent different parts of itself every few years. So even if I end up moving into a slightly adjacent role or I do something slightly different, I really like working for VSA, and I like kind of where I am, and I feel like there's cool things for me on the horizon until I retire and become a nomad.
And then you get that RV and you join Denise. Cool. Got it.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to fly to different countries. Yeah.
Katie, take us home. Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years?
Oh, I don't know. I don't want to say that I have the advantage, because that feels wrong to say, but I still feel like I'm a little fresher in my career, a little newer in my career. So it's one of those things where I'm kind of like, oh, I'd like to stay with product, I think, maybe, but I don't know. It could be that I find a calling back to project management, and, it feels good. I don't know. We'll see. Echo's a pretty cool place to be, though. So I'm willing to stick around there for a bit. We'll see.
As Heaven Echo is one of our clients, they are really cool. And I am biased, and you guys have a really cool office space. So I get it.
We do.
Yes.
Except for the weird hallway. Like Susan knows about the weird hallway.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. Because Susan, you're over there.
Yes, because I'm at VSA, so we're in between the hallway. Although our space moved slightly over, so now the hallway is just next to us. But there was a good 2 years where there was a hallway dividing our space that was Echo's hallway.
Cool. All right. Well, with that, Erin, if your internet's working, I will hop it back over to you.
Can you hear me and see me?
I can't see you, but
no?
I can
Hear you. Yeah.
choppingly hear you.
Okay.
Choppingly.
Well, let me know if it is choppy. Heather could take us to end everything, but I will try. So just interrupt me if you can't hear me at all.
That sounds good, Erin.
Anyways, thank you everyone for coming to this meeting. Apologies for the technical issues, but big thank you to Heather for taking the moderator role, and thank you for our speakers for coming in. to talk about their career paths. So as I mentioned at the start, this is something that we're trying to do every month. For the next month, though, we are trying to do something a little bit differently. So what we are hoping to do is do a digital tools expo. If you were RSVP to this meeting, you probably saw in one of my emails some information, and I will send out a follow-up. But what we're looking to do, if you have a digital tool that you use, that you love, that you can't go without, that you're obsessed with, we're looking for submissions where the idea is we do an hour-long meetup where all of you get to present and everyone gets to come in, do a demo if you want, 5 to 15 minutes, where you kind of show everyone what is this tool, how does it help, how does it work, why should people be just as obsessed with it as you are. So if you know of a tool like that you think that people gotta know, keep an eye out for an email from me. We have a little form, fill it out, let us know why it's a cool tool, and then we'll be reaching out with more information. We don't know when that meetup will be. We'll have to see what submissions we get, when people are available. Could be end of April, could be early May, around that time period, we will see. But that's kind of what we're looking to do. We are obviously planning to do meetups after that, looking at a bunch of different ideas. But if you have ideas about what you would like to see at an upcoming meetup, whether it's a panel, whether it's a workshop, whether you just have ideas about stuff that you want to know, shoot us an email, leave a comment on the meetup, because we love feedback and we want to know what you want to know so we can give you what you want to know. And then finally, if you know anyone that you think would be a great speaker, we're looking for contacts too. So reach out. We're always happy to talk. With all that being said, apologies again about the Zoom issues, but I hope you all had a great time. I also hope that my recording worked, because we do put these up on YouTube. If it worked, we'll see. So keep an eye out for that. And I hope to see you all at our next meetup.
Thanks, everyone. This was awesome.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.
Right.
Thank you, panelists, for sharing your personal journey.
Of course.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.